Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Let's Max Warframe, where today we're taking a bit of a belated look at a revamp of a weapon that's been in the game for a long time. The grineer flamethrower, the Ignis. Now the Ignis, as I say, has been in the game for such a long time now, and it can only have been described as mastery fodder except to a few die-hard fans of it. It had one of the worst damage outputs in the game, the range was mediocre, and it was just downright rubbish. However, after many threads requesting buffs, it finally did get one. So what changed? Well, they increased the range of the flame, gave the weapon innate multi-shot, added a 2-meter punch through, and increased the clip size and total ammo capacity. So where does that actually leave the Ignis? With a base damage of 27 pure heat per shot, not only is it what you would expect from a flamethrower, it also combines fantastically in some really useful status combos like radiation and blast damage. And when you take into account the 25% chance per second status chance, the Ignis can be a fantastic AoE status weapon. The great thing about the Ignis is also that the status chance per second can be increased with the use of fire rate mods, because as you expect, if you fire more rounds per second at the enemy, the status chance per second increases as well. And when you combine with that the dual stat elemental and status mods, and the wide cone of fire of the actual weapon, the increased range of the Ignis of about 40 meters, this thing can deal out some serious status procs in a pretty decent area of effect. Now the innate punch through on the Ignis also means you don't have to mod separately for it, which means that you are saving a mod space for something more important. Now this doesn't mean that the Ignis is faultless, although there really isn't a lot wrong with it. The single target damage, as you can understand, isn't actually going to be that fantastic, since the base damage isn't that high. So the Ignis is definitely more at home dousing large groups of enemies in cleansing fire than it is to try and take down a single target. The damage itself without fire rate mods, it's not the best either. It drops off fairly quickly, which means that the fire rate mods really are needed, and that in turn means that the ammo mutation is pretty much mandatory as well. The crit stats aren't also the greatest with just a 5% chance, so the occasional crit is going to happen, although it's going to be nowhere near good enough to mod for. Okay, so let's move on to starting to mod the Ignis. Now it doesn't come with any polarities as standard, so we're going to add 6 former, which is going to be 3 Vs and 3 dashes. Now, normally I would talk about the same build and the different elemental combos, however for this I actually have 3 very different builds. Now for this one we got Serration for damage, Split Chamber for multi-shot, Heavy Caliber since the actual arc and the beam of the Ignis, the actual flame, doesn't seem to be really affected by Heavy Caliber that much. And then we got Firestorm and we've got Sinister Reach, which are both going to improve the range of the Ignis. Now this thing means you can spread the damage out over just a ridiculous distance. Maybe a little too much. It's kind of a fun build, this one. It's not really for heavy damage. It's not really for spreading the status procs, but it's kind of a fun low level build. And for this we're going to go with 3 dashes, which are going to be all the elementals. So at the moment I've got Corrosive and Heat on here, so Stormbringer Infected Clip for the Corrosive and Hellfire for the Heat. And then obviously if you're against the Corpus, go with the Magnetic and Toxin. Against the Grineer, Radiation and Poison. And if you're using Corrosive Projection, go for Viral and Heat. Now the second build is very different. So we got Serration here for damage, Split Chamber, Heavy Caliber, that's not going to change. However, this time we've gone slightly different with the build. We've got Vile Acceleration for fire rate, and we've got Ammo Mutation on here, which is basically going to improve the rate of fire of the thing. It brings it up to 19 rounds a second, but also it brings up that status chance. Because obviously firing more rounds per second means that your status per second is going to go up as well. And then when you combine that with Malignant Force and Thermite rounds, basically the dual stat elementals, it brings your status per second up to a pretty fantastic 104.5, meaning this thing really does spread the status procs around. And then in that spare dash slot we've got another 90% elemental mod. Now this is again a fantastic build. This is actually the build I use the most often for spreading status procs around. Once again, Grineer, we go Radiation and Heat. against the corpus, magnetic and poison. In the void, we'll go with corrosive and heat. And we will go with viral and heat for the corrosive protection void. And then we've got a sort of combination of all the above. This is more of a straight up damage build if you really want to go very focused into the damage rather than onto the status. You're still going to get a fairly decent 47.5% status chance with the vial acceleration. And obviously you've got the ammo mutation on there just to help with the ammo usage. And then you've got the 3 90% mods in here for the straight up damage. Now neither one of these builds is best. I much prefer config B here, the status per second one. I just find this so effective at spreading status procs around. If you put viral on this, or if you put radiation on this thing can be an absolute lifesaver. It can be a real asset to any team, and has some real high level potential, as you can keep a lot of enemies like fighting each other, or you can do group viral procs, that sort of thing, and actually has a lot more endgame potential than people realise. So do I think the Ignis is worth the time, effort and the 4 to max, or to give it a second chance? Then absolutely yes I do. I was one of those weird people that liked the Ignis beforehand. I knew it wasn't great, but it was a flamethrower that looked awesome and was effective when you combined it with Banshee's sonar to decimate low to mid-level enemies. But it really dropped off when you started doing content where the enemies scaled quickly, like survival. However, the innate multi-shot of the weapon plus all of the other bonuses it received, the damage output, especially when you spread it over a large group of enemies, is pretty fantastic. And the fact that it's actually probably the first proper AoE status weapon. It's a huge amount of fun and has some serious high level potential as a proper team support weapon. Now there is a couple of things to remember with the Ignis. Firstly, the damage does fall off over range, so the further away the target, the less damage it's going to take, although it does mean increased damage when you're up and in their face. In addition to that, combining the Ignis with a Resonance Banshee is incredible because it will always hit the sonar spots when it fires, dealing increased damage and really spreading those additional sonar spots around. You can also combine it with its spiritual compatriot Ember with an accelerant build and a heat damage, and absolutely blast through missions in super quick time. It's an absolutely incredible combo. In fact, with the Sarin changes and the Sarin rework that I will do a video on very soon that hit this evening, the Ignis also hits every spore thrown out by Sarin, really giving a huge boost to her damage, making the Ignis a perfect weapon to spread her toxins. The Ignis itself, it was a weapon that was pure mastery fodder before, used and loved by a very small group of enthusiasts. It was given a brand new lease of life with its latest buff. It's incredible fun, it's hugely moddable with the ability to really tailor it to your own playstyle. It's definitely worth having a second look, and I can say with certainty that those of you that are worried about the Sarin changes not allowing her to blitz exterminates anymore, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Ember or Banshee combined with the Ignis. As always guys, many thanks for watching, and I shall see you in the next episode.